Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that you're here today with us. I would like to introduce you to Nathalie Chapron. She is a fashion expert. So let me welcome Nathalie.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I want to tell everybody about you before we get started.
Okay.
So Nathalie is, she styles celebrities as well as some of the most highly acclaimed transformational leaders of our time. She was a holistic healer turned image consultant. She believes a woman is most compelling when her style is a reflection of her unique essence. She blends her inherited French aesthetics and formal image consulting training to help her clients look and feel their best by aligning their inner and outer beauty. She is among an elite group of image consultants trained in the Suzanne Cagill method of color and style analysis. There's a waiting list for her private sessions where she works from over 30,000 colors and 9 principles of design to create a custom palette and design blueprint, which will boost her clients' confidence and radiance dramatically. Nathalie is sought after internationally as an engaging and inspiring speaker. She loves leading her divinely feminine retreats in France, where she takes her clients shopping in Paris. They do a photo shoot too. And then they stay in a castle in the south of France and walk in the footsteps of Mary Magdalene. She lives in the South San Francisco Bay Area with her husband and young son. Thank you so much. It sounds like an exciting life.
It is an exciting life. It is an exciting life. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Barbara, I'm sorry. Can we pause the recording right now? I forgot something really important.
Thank you so much for being here, Nathalie. Really appreciate it. We're going to learn a lot today.
That's my intention. Thank you so much for having me, Barbara, and so delighted to be with you and everyone listening.
Yes. So let's get right into it. What is the most important area one should focus on to give a lasting first impression?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Thank you so much for asking that question. I'm going to answer that in a moment. And before I do that, I'd love to know if it's okay if I would share a little bit about my story and why I'm even, and it's going to lead right into that question actually, because it's so important so people can have a sense of where I came from and why I'm sharing this with you today.
That would be wonderful. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So as you mentioned, when you read my bio, my life is pretty exciting right now. It's pretty fun. I get to travel internationally to lead, people shopping in Paris, to lead retreats. I've spoken all over. I mean, I've spoken in Costa Rica, in Peru, whatever. I've traveled a lot, and I love traveling, so it's really fun. And most importantly, I work with people who are just absolutely amazing. I work with very high level people, like you mentioned, celebrities and highly known transformational leaders, and I love working with them. I also work with people who are starting out, people who are starting out in their business, people who are wanting to date, and they're starting out back onto the dating scene after maybe having been gone for a while. Maybe they were married and now, or they are divorced, and so they're like, okay, time to start dating again, or whatever the case may be. So it's very exciting, and I love my clients. And I love that I'm able to make such a contribution in their life. It's really rewarding. So I'm very grateful for that. I don't take it for granted, especially because, not so long ago, my life looked very different than it does now. And one of the things that I didn't used to share publicly, but I started to share about my story because it's really important for women, especially, to understand what I've been through. And so from age 16 to age 26, I actually suffered from a very severe eating disorder. where I was bulimic. And I was bulimic to the degree that I would binge and purge at least every day, and sometimes more than once a day. And it was so painful to go through this because nobody knew. It was this deep, dark secret that I had, that I was so isolated because I couldn't share this with anyone. Even my mom, who I'm very close to, didn't know. And of course, I have very few friends. And so I was depressed, I was isolated, I was suffering. And the reason, part of the root cause of why I was suffering from this eating disorder was that I had a very strong self-loathing. I didn't love myself. I didn't love the way that I looked. I just hated myself pretty much. So it was a very, very dark time. And I know that a lot of women can relate to this to a degree or another. You know, I couldn't appreciate my own beauty at all. And I hated my cheeks, for example. Like I was like, oh, my cheeks are so fat. And, like there's so many ways in which I would just have this negative self-talk about myself. And so I went on a journey to heal myself of this eating disorder. And so I found holistic health. I found Ayurveda and yoga. So I started to do breath work and meditating and all those great things. And so that helped me heal the binging and purging aspect, but the self-loathing was still there. And it wasn't until years later, in a way that was completely bizarre, that the healing happened for me. And it's connected to why I'm doing this work now. So I'd love to share that with you. So I actually was in a training where I was learning to become a public speaker, right? To share my message, because I always felt like there was something I was meant to help people with. I didn't know what it was at the time. And so I'd invested in this training, and they were saying, okay, well, you're going to stand up in front of the room, 3 people in the room, and they're going to look at you and they're going to assess based on your image how much they think you're worth per hour. Can you imagine? I was like, what? So anyway, I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I stood up. And so at that time, just to give you context, as a health coach, I wasn't doing Ayurvedic medicine at the time. I was charging $100 to $150 an hour, okay? So I stand up and they assess me and they say to me, based on your image, we think you're worth $25 to $35 per hour. Ouch. So in some professions, in admin, that's great. Why? But for me at that time, you see there was such a huge disconnect between my perceived value and what I was asking people to invest with me. And I realized in that moment, wow, like I had no idea. And I'm French, right? I come from, we understand fashion, we pay attention. It wasn't like I wasn't paying attention. So there was something that I didn't understand, right? And so when that happened, it was like a wake-up call. And I knew, I was like, okay, well, whatever it is like my next step has to be around image. And right around that time, something happened. I met a couple of people. They walked into the room, Barbara, and they were so magnetic. They were so aligned. They were so congruent, and they were so successful, right? Their business was, they were multimillionaires. And I was like, wow, like whatever it is about these 2 people, I want some of that. So I asked them, what have you done? And they said, well, we worked with this woman who helped us align our inner essence with our outer appearance. And she created a color palette for us. She created a design blueprint for us. So she told us all of our design elements. She took us shopping, and essentially she helped us align our inner with our outer. And I was like, that is my next step. So I hired that woman, worked with her. And I remember receiving the work, what she was choosing the colors from thousands of colors, which is, you get to see some of my colors behind me here, right? I have over 30,000 now. And I remember seeing my palette, my colors, and sobbing, just weeping, because of the deep recognition of, first of all, vibrational resonance with these colors. And secondly, it was like for the first time I could see my own beauty. Because here were these beautiful colors that felt like me, and they were me. And so in that moment, I heard a voice like this is an area where we as women, in any area of our lives, you know, in our dating life, in our professional life, in our personal life, wherever it is, we lose so much power around not knowing what are the best colors for us, how to best adorn ourselves so that it, you know, we feel at home in our clothes, where we feel aligned, we feel authentic, and yet we're showing up at our best, right? Like, we're not taught how to do it that way. And so that's why I decided to learn how to do this. And so now, years later, I've become a top expert in color psychology and design. And that's why I'm here with you today, sharing about what I'm about to share with you.
That's a remarkable story, and I give you a lot of credit for, you know, trying to figure out, working through, you know, your problem and overcoming that, and then continuing your evolution and your journey in your life to where you are now, and how remarkable that is. And I commend you for the courage that you've had.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't always easy, but I'm glad I'm on the other side of it. Yeah, there's hope. There's always hope. So thank you for that. So now back to your question, which was such a great question. Can you remind me what it was?
Absolutely. So it has to do with what is the most important area one should focus on to create a lasting first impression.
That's right. Fantastic question. So let's talk a little bit about alignment. You know, when we want to make a first impression, you know, you're going on a first date, maybe it's a blind date, maybe it's not, right? But the first date, and we all have heard first impressions matter, right? Like, we all know that it's true, and there's only one time you can make a good first impression, right? It's like, it's non-forgiving, and people make decisions about us very quickly, you know, in a few seconds. So we want to make that count. And so what is important in making a good first impression and a great first impression is really being authentic to you, who you are. And I'll get more into that in a moment, because congruency is everything. If you're not aligned with who you are, there's a disconnect, and then it breaks trust. Okay. And so that's really important. And then it's also showing up at your best. Showing up at your best, you know, like really paying attention, really taking this seriously. Even if it's a casual date, it doesn't mean you're going to wear, you know, an evening gown to go out for coffee. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, of course, appropriate for the occasion, but there's a way in which you know that you've paid attention, you've really learned how to you know, what are the principles, what are the right colors for you, what are the right design elements for you, you know, and how can you adorn yourself in a way that is authentic, that feels good, where you're comfortable, but you're also showing up at your best. So that's the key element in order to make a first impression, because it really isn't about being somebody that you're not. You don't want to start out that way. You don't want to like try so hard that you're doing something because you read something in a magazine, or you saw something on TV, or the latest fashion or the latest trend of like, oh, this year, you know, you got to do that color or this. No, that has nothing to do with you. This is all outside in information. And so let's start with you. What is authentic to you? And then from that place of alignment, then you can feel confident. Right? Then you can feel like you're at your best, and then you're going to show up way more radiant and open, ready to have a really deeper connection, because you're going to feel comfortable in your skin, as opposed to, you know, always fidgeting, or is this okay? Or, you know what I mean? Like, just be present with the person that you're connecting with. So that's a really key element. So I would love to teach everyone listening a scale that is called the A through F scale. You probably never have heard of it, yet you fall on the scale between A and F. So what do I mean by A and F? So A stands for approachable. And approachable, when I say approachable, I want you to think of Mrs. Santa Claus, right? She's so sweet. She has rounded features, and She's definitely non-threatening, right? So her features and her colorings and her essence make her approachable in a way that we feel safe around her. You know, we want to hang out with her. We want to just whatever. We just feel good around her, and we feel safe and we feel comfortable. So somebody who is approachable would tend to have a big heart. Usually it's somebody who tends to be kind, generous, giving, loving, perhaps putting other people's needs before her own or his own, right? Usually a giver, somebody who just cares about others and loves to help out and to give. Feature wise, they would tend to have more rounded features as opposed to angular features. They might tend to have lighter coloring or not as much contrast between, you know, their skin, their hair, and their eyes, where, you know, there's just, when you look at them, they just feel safer. They feel, you know, you feel safe around them. And then their essence, they tend to be, like I said, they tend to be kind and generous. So a lot of people fall in the approachable category. and it's great because the thing with being approachable is that people feel safe around you. And that's such a gift. That's such a gift. People feel like they might, you know, when I talk to people about this, they're like, and I say, oh, I bet you that people just come up to you and just tell you their life story, just like that, right? You and I had that conversation, Barbara. And it's true. It just happens because they feel safe around you. And it's such a gift, right? And so in the dating realm, it's really nice that people feel safe. You definitely want people to feel safe so they can open up. The challenge with being too approachable is that then there might be a kind of respect that is missing, a kind of the formality. So F, we'll get to F in a moment, but F stands for formal. And so if you're approachable and you tend to stay in approachability and you don't have access to the formality, what happens then is you might end up in the friend zone, or you might end up being taken advantage of because, oh, but she's so kind and she's so sweet, and yeah, I can reschedule on her last minute 3 times in a row. Or do you know what I mean? Like where there's a certain level of respect that cannot be there. Okay, so that's with approachable. With formal, so F stands for formal, and when I say formal, I want you to think of Cruella de Vil. Or Dracula, by the way, it's true for men as well. I forgot to say it's Mr. or Mrs. Santa Claus, right? And then Cruella de Vil or Dracula for the men. And what happens here with being formal, the respect usually tends to be there. Because somebody who's more formal tends to have, they're more guarded usually. They're less open, right? So there's a little bit of a barrier between them and other people. And so they kind of tend to observe more. They're maybe a little bit quieter, a little bit more restrained, right? And they usually tend to have a little bit more of maybe like, because of the restraint, it almost feels like there's a regality to them, you know? And so people can be like, wow, like, okay, yeah, you can feel their power, you know? And so the respect might be there, but what isn't there as readily is the approachability. It's harder to make a connection with somebody who's a little bit more guarded, you know? And then sometimes when things happen in life and we've been hurt, or, you know, we can tend to kind of guard our heart and protect our heart a little bit more. And so over time, we might be a little bit more guarded and less open. So that can also play here as well. And so what can happen here is that people feel like, yeah, she's pretty cool or he's pretty amazing, but I'm not feeling the heart connection. And that's hard to establish, right? If there's no opening, it's hard. So that could be, you might have heard the feedback, you're intimidating, or I don't feel safe around you, or if you hear the feedback, because it's not something that's people say easily, right? But yeah, and so it's a little harder to establish the connection. So from a design perspective, we talked about essence a lot, and then from a design perspective, somebody who's more formal tend to be perhaps have more angular features, right? Angles are definitely less approachable than curves, right? So angular, angular jawline, maybe pointy nose, maybe pointy features, generally speaking, in high contrast. So that could be, but the main thing is the essence here as well. And so the way Mother Nature made you, Barbara, you don't have a lot of control over that. She made you with your essence. She made you with your colors. She made you with your design elements. And that's kind of how you're made. And yes, you could change your hair color, right? And do a few things like that. But overall, for the most part, it is what it is. But where you have control is in choosing how you adorn yourself. What are the elements that you're choosing to wear so that you're either, if you're already approachable, making yourself even more approachable, or bringing yourself to the middle so that you have access to formality as well as approachability. And same with formal. If you're formal, how can you bring some elements of approachability so that people feel a little bit safer around you and that they can open up to you a little bit more? So that would be my invitation, is to kind of get a sense of where you might fall on the scale, and then start to think about, and I can give you tips as well. I want to take a pause here, see if you have any specific questions, Barbara, but I want to give some tips to listeners on what to do.
Right. So, if you tend to be on one side or the other of the scale, then the things that you choose to adorn yourself with, colors, etc., that can pull you more towards the middle. So somebody that is formal and looks unapproachable, they could then fall towards the approachable side. People that are approachable but don't want to be taken advantage of want to pull themselves towards the formal side. So that's what I'm concluding based on what you're saying. And if someone would come to you and have the full analysis, etc., would the end result be that they would be more in the middle majority of the time, unless of course they wanted to be more formal because they were dressing more formal, or more approachable because they were, just running to the store kind of thing, not really like worrying about presentation? So there you go.
Great question. Well, yes, and the idea, so when I do the analysis for somebody and I choose, I create a color palette based on their own personal colors, and I create a design blueprint based on their design elements. And the premise of the work that I do, by the way, just as an aside, it's all about looking at what's already here and honoring it and repeating it in what you actually wear. So it comes from a deep place of self-acceptance and objectivity, which can be hard to do when it comes to image. So the idea then is to give you a range of possibilities, because the thing with colors, certain colors have an approachable effect and certain colors have a formal effect, right? So when you have access to the range, you can decide when you want to be approachable and when you want to be formal, or when you want to have a little bit of both. We want to have approachability, we want to have formality, so that you can have both. And so that's what having your color palette and your design blueprint do for you, is it gives you the ability to actually express yourself, just like in a language. It's a language. It's a visual communication tool, right? And it's very powerful. It's so powerful and underutilized in my experience, and also simply because people don't know. We're not taught. I mean, I believe this should be taught in school, right? We should all know what our design is, what our color is, and then how to use the design elements to communicate more effectively, period. And maybe one day it will be, but for now, yes, it gives people the ability to play on the scale, because I don't give people rules. I don't believe in rules. If somebody gives me a rule, I just want to break the rule. I'm a rebel. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Can you relate to that? But I like guidelines. I like understanding. And then if I understand it, then I can be creative with it. I can have fun with it. I can play with it. I can be like a researcher, you know, and be like, ooh, when I wear these kinds of shoes, I get this kind of a response. That's interesting. We'll talk about that in a moment, right? You know, it's just, oh, if I wear this neckline or this color, I get this kind of a response. Interesting. And you could just kind of observe and see what, and also how you feel. Because that's the thing about color and design, and it's being researched. There's a type of, like a subtype of psychology called enclothed cognition. And they're studying the effect of clothing on our behavior, on our performance, on our abilities. I mean, it's amazing. It's very powerful. So, yes.
Well, that's very interesting because there are times where I'll be wearing a certain color and I get a reaction from people and they comment how good that color looks on me.
Yeah.
And yet I'll wear colors that I think look good on me and I don't get the same reaction.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's like I said, it's very difficult to be objective about our own image because we carry, you know, we pick up things along the way and they pile up on our back, you know, things that somebody said to us when we were in second grade and somebody that your mom said, whatever, like it, you know, and we just internalize those. And then we still, I mean, I hear this all the time in the sessions I do with my clients, and for me too, things that were said a long time ago still inform some of the choices we make to this day. Somebody said something about your legs. Okay, so you're never showing your legs, or you always have a complex about, you know what I mean? Like, but we all have stuff like that. So it's challenging. So what I'd love to do right now, if I may, is to give a few tips. So if you're approachable and you're going on a date, well, what do? You know, so because this is important. I said, you know, you want to look and feel your best, and you want to be taken seriously, right? So, and also you want to make that connection if it's meant to be, right? You want to definitely be at your most open, your most connected, your most available for what's present. It may or may not end up being this person that you're going to be in a romantic partnership with, but you never know, right? So some of the principles to understand, I'm going to give you the big guidelines, like I said, is that generally speaking, darker colors that are dark are more formal than colors which are light. Okay, so if you're already approachable and you're wanting to bring in some formality, you would favor some darker colors, right? As opposed to the very light colors, you know, the light pinks, or which are super fresh and lovely, by the way. Or if you are going to wear those colors, you would pair them up perhaps with a jacket or a shrug or a shawl or a cardigan, something where you have a frame around you that give you a little bit of that formality, so that you're not just in the light pink or just in the light peach, right? Or the light blush color, whatever it is for you, okay? So that's really important, is to kind of have access to the darker colors for a little bit of formality. And then design, from a design element, the flowier elements, the flowier fabric, the fabrics that, you know, kind of like are so flirtatious and fun, that flow in the wind, you know, those are more approachable than a garment that has a little bit more structure, right? Good to know, to think about. So if you find yourself as an approachable being repeatedly, you know, taken advantage of, for example, you might want to make that first impression with a little bit more oomph, a little bit more power, a little bit more structure in what you're wearing, and then see what happens as a result, right? See how people connect with you, and their listening of your changes, right? Because you can either exacerbate your approachability or you can mitigate for it and bring yourself to the middle of the scale. So that's for approachable. Now, what about, oh, and there's one element as well, which is shoes. generally speaking. So the most approachable of all types of shoes would obviously be a casual sandal where you're showing your feet and it's a casual shoe. That's going to be very, very, I mean, and then tennis shoes, of course, obviously, right? So depending on what kind of a first date you're going on, just keep that in mind. But even if you're showing less of your feet, even if it's a casual day, you're going on a coffee date, it's in the spring, summer, whatever, and it's warm and you want to have some, but just maybe do a kind of a mule or something like a sling back or something where perhaps part of your toe, and by the way, speaking of shapes, you know, if you're covering the front of your toes, a pointy toe, and you could do a sling back, right, with a pointy toe is going to be more formal and more commanding, and you're going to notice how people take you more seriously if you have a pointy toe as opposed to a rounded toe or open toes. It's crazy, but it's true. So start observing, be a researcher, and they don't have to be high heels either. You know, people say to me all the time, well, I have problems with my ankles and I can't wear heels. It doesn't have to be heels. They could be flats, you know, and now there's comfort shoes where, you know, you can absolutely be comfortable and cute. So they're making a lot of progress in that area, thank God, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for formals, and this is mostly for women, and we can talk about men afterwards and, you know, give a few tips for men as well. For formal, if you're a woman and you feel formal and you have been given the feedback that you are intimidating and that you are, you know, people have a hard time approaching you, or, right, we talked about that. What can you do? So for you, you would want to bring in some elements of design which are more approachable and less formal. So you would perhaps do a little less structure and a little more flow. So perhaps a silk blouse in your blush tone would be fantastic, right? So that color, when you pinch your cheeks, you know, when you bring color to your cheeks, that's your blush tone. For some of you, it's a rosy pink, right? For some of you, it's more of a peachy color. It's a little warmer, right? But whatever that is for you, that color, that's a beautiful color. It's very fresh. It's very youthful. It's very flirtatious, very fun. It's also very approachable. So that's a really great color for you to wear. As a standalone, you don't need a jacket because you want to feel approachable, right? So that would be a great color. It could be a blouse or it could be a dress even, you know, in that color, and that would be very approachable. And you know, do the opposite with your shoes. Don't wear pointy toes, you know, either go for rounded toes or perhaps an open toe, and then a little bit more flow in your garment, and you'll see, you'll feel softer than if you're wearing a black and white, which is the highest level of contrast. So that's the most formal in terms of contrast. Black and white is going to be super intimidating. And usually if you're formal, you're going to love black and white. So be mindful of that, right? I would also not wear all black on a first date.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
Especially as a formal. If
Right.
you're already formal and you're wearing all black, it's like you're creating a wall. So even though everybody's telling you the little black dress, everybody should have a little black dress, I don't agree with that. Some people, a lot of my clients, I mean, I don't give black to everyone. I give black about 1/4 of the time. For some people, black is not flattering. I'm sorry, I know this is not a popular thing to say. Then people, if you want to tune me out now, please don't. But like, it's true, you know, you want to know these things, right? Because for some of you, your formal color is actually more of a navy than a black. You look so much better in navy because it makes your radiance more powerful, more glowy, as opposed to dull your light, you know, which black can do for a lot of people. So be careful with black.
Yeah. And you know, when I go and buy a formal outfit, it's usually black. I have other colors, but that seems to be my go-to for something formal.
Well, and especially if it's a black tie event, that's what you're supposed to wear, right? I mean,
right.
You know, that's what people say you're supposed to do. But and it's hard when you don't have the alternative. right? So you might be thinking, oh my God, yeah, Natalie, you're saying no black, but then what am I going to wear instead? It's hard because you don't know, right? It feels like if you don't have black, there's going to be this big void. And what are you going to do? And half of your closet might be like, this was me before I did that work. I was like, what do you mean? I can't, what? I had so much black, it was hard. I mean, I get it. But then when I saw the difference between my black, which is a navy, and now I can do a tiny bit of black, but I certainly can't do all black the way I used to do, right? And navy is so much better for me. But it's like, yeah, it makes a difference. So, but once you have your alternative, once you see it with your own eyes and you're like, oh, that's what black does to me. Okay, I never want to wear it again like it, because you could see it, because you have the alternative. So anyway.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
The black bomb has been dropped.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends. They're always wearing black. Like everything they ever wear is black. And
right.
Yeah, so.
Right. No, I know we're taught this by the fashion industry, and it's really, it's a marketing thing. It started out because, they have all the different dyes from all the different colors that they do, and then they put them all into one thing, and that becomes black. And then they know that they could do all the different models. If you see it, you have the bold colors, and then you have it always in black.
Right.
And now, because they know that it's going to sell no matter what, because women will buy it, because it's slimming, right? We've been told it's very sophisticated, right? And so we just buy it. And then sometimes it hurts. It doesn't work in our favor sometimes. So it's just to be cautious about it, just to be educated and empowered around it. I mean, for all I know, black could be in your palette. So I'm not saying right now, don't ever wear black again. I'm saying just know that it may not be, right? That's
right.
all.
Okay. All right. So for singles and going online, they need pictures. So for a profile picture, what are the most attracting colors? I mean, yes, we all have our palettes, but is there something that's more attracting for a woman in a picture? And is there something that's more attracting for a man in a picture?
Yes, great question. So yes, everyone has their own palette. So I always start with that. And then we have the generalized, and there's so many studies about this, but we know that when a woman wears red in her pictures, men find her more attractive. Like that's just kind of the way it is, right? So, and by the way, everyone has red in their palette, but it's not always the same red. So for some people, their red is a blue-based red. For some people, it's a more of a neutral red, like more of a true red, like a signal red. For some people, their red is more of a terracotta. For some people, it's more of a warm red, like an orangey red. You know what I mean? So there's so many types of reds, and everyone has their red. So when I say you will look better in red, it's better if it's your red. So may I teach everyone how to find their red right now? Would that be helpful?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your pinky, and you're going to press your pinky, until it's like about an inch below, right at the articulation there, at the phalange. And you're going to press it until your pinky, the blood stops flowing. Don't hurt yourself, please. But you'll see what happens is you're seeing that it's becoming darker, right? You're seeing that. So can you show us, Barbara, if you hold it up so people could see? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there it is. I don't know if you can see how red it is.
Well, we can't really see
right.
through this, but just to give an idea of what it actually looks like, and you can see mine as well. Yeah. And so you could see that I can see, of course, I'm trained, but you can see, okay, mine definitely has some purple undertones. It's a cooler red, and it's, has like a purplish tone to it. So that's my red.
Right.
And so for you watching this, you can, do this exercise. And what you'll do is, if you have red, for example, in your palette, in your wardrobe, I mean, you can take your pinky and squeeze it and kind of put it in front of the garments. And if there's harmony and you feel like, oh yes, the vibration of this red kind of blends in with your red that you have in your palette, in your wardrobe, that's going to be a good red for you. If it jumps out where you're like, where they're like not friends, you know, where it's like, oh, that red does not belong here, it just wants to jump out, it's probably not good. Probably the undertones are not right for you. So good to know. Obviously you can use this trick, you know, for lipstick, for blush, for anything that you're wearing that is red, so that it's in harmony with your red. So that's a good color for you to wear. And actually that would be true for men as well, but it's mostly true for women. But because red is related to blood and passion, when we're talking about dating, we're talking about passion, right? We're talking about romance, we're talking about love. And so red is a very good color to wear. Now, I will say this, you know, I work with a world-class photographer and we take people, you know, doing photo shoots in Paris and other fabulous locations. And one of the things is when we photograph red, people in their red, because of the white balance in the camera and what she's supposed, how she's calibrating it, it can sometimes, it could be a hard color to photograph is what I'm saying. So you definitely want to make sure you have someone who's very qualified to do your pictures. This is really important. I believe if you want to have a good success with your profile online, you need great pictures. You need to look fantastic. You need to be in your alignment, in your essence, right? And then you can have, you know, good results where you can, I mean, all my clients after they work with me, and I work a lot with entrepreneurs as well that come first because of their business, but also they want to be dating too, you know? And so then they change their profile and then they're like, oh my God, like the amount of responses that they get after we do the transformation, it's amazing. They're always blown away. And it's because of that. They look great, you know, people like, ooh, who's that, you know? So it's fun, but that's a great color. So, but the other thing for men, if you're not sure if you want to wear your red or you want to wear other color, for men, another color that would be really powerful, especially if you have colored eyes. So for example, if your eyes are blue or green, like significantly so, as opposed to brown, your eye color is a great color to wear because it builds a lot of trust. You see, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? And so when you're wearing your eye color and a woman sees your profile picture and you have this beautiful blue shirt, for example, or jacket, you know, let's say you're wearing a dress shirt and with a sports coat, and it's in your eye related, it brings all the energy back to your eyes and she feels she can see deeply into your soul and establish that connection like this with you, and she'll feel like she can trust you, right? And for a woman, trust is so key because she needs to know that she's safe with you, right? And so that would be a really powerful color for you to wear as a man. And with the design element, I realized I just want to give a couple tips for the approachable versus formal for the men, so that you don't feel left out. I apologize. But it's similar where if you're approachable, you want to bring in formality. If you're already approachable, you would want to have, you don't want to just have a casual shirt and chinos and Birkenstocks or something casual for a date, or even like really comfortable shoes. You don't want to do that. You want to dress up a little bit more to what you're normally not, you know, again, you want to be who you are, but you want to be the best version of who you are. And so perhaps get some designer denim, you know, like really nice jeans that are stretchy so they're comfy, but a little bit more fitted, less loose, right? And then a nice shirt, a nice dress shirt. Doesn't have to be super fancy, but something that looks nice, right? That is like, it's well pressed, you know, you're well groomed, you've paid attention. And so she feels like it's a gift to her when you dress up a little bit. It really is. She'll feel like, wow, he did that for me. He cared enough to actually dress up for me. And that's going to make a great first impression. And then if you're formal as a man and you're intimidating, and women, you want them to feel safer, you depending on the circumstances, perhaps don't wear the sports coat or the jacket, just keep the dress shirt by itself. Perhaps you could do a vest, you know, there's lots of things you could do, or a sweater, you know, but things a little softer, less angular, less dark colors. Definitely don't show up all in black, you know, black jacket with a black shirt on or something. Definitely bring in a little bit lighter colors. And again, the eye color trick for you is really good. And if you have brown eyes, you're probably asking, well, what should I do if I have brown eyes? That's a little trickier question. But let's just say that there's a highlight of your eye in a brown eye that could be anything from a topaz or a gold or a copper or paprika or any of those beautiful, or even a rose brown. Some brown eyes are cool actually, but you would look for that highlight, and you would go and you wear that color. So it's a lighter color, but it still relates to your eyes, and it makes the light of your eye kind of just shine really bright, and it still builds a lot of trust. So I hope this helps.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've given us a lot of good information about, you know, paying attention to color, to your style, you know, and try to get into the middle so that you're approachable and you're not somebody that people are like, yeah, not approachable, not safe, you know, and yet you don't want to be taken advantage of either on the other side of it. So yeah, I mean, you've given us a lot of wonderful information, and I greatly appreciate this. Is there any last thing that you want to add?
I do. So ultimately, you know, when we are dating is a very vulnerable thing to do. Putting ourselves out there, meeting new people, establishing if they're a good match for us or not, right? Kissing a lot of frogs, then hopefully finding the one, right? And so ultimately, my invitation is to, when you're getting ready, when you are, you know, putting yourself together before a date, is to remember how amazing you are, right? To remember how you're amazing. You're a walking, living, breathing miracle. It's who you are, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so just coming from this place of deep self-love and deep honoring, and you know, the choices you're making to honor to adorn yourself, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're approachable or formal, it doesn't matter, but just do it from a place of self-love and acceptance and nurturing, so that the positive voice in your head is just supporting and loving you. That's the last thing I wanted to share. Yeah, start with, like, really just love yourself.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you for adding that. Do you have a gift for our audience today?
I do have a gift for our audience today. So I actually put together this training on what to wear on a first date, right? What to wear on a first date. And so it's a video training, and there's a little bit of what I shared today is going to be in there. So there's going to be a little bit of review, but there's going to be more information in there as well. And so it's really about that. It's about what can you do to really be most in your alignment when you are going on a first date, so that you can have the best chance at making that first impression, so that you really feel comfortable. And because I get this question all the time, right? What should I wear on a first date? So there's a lot of great information in there. It's a short video, but it's packed full of information. And so I hope this will be valuable for everyone. I'm
sure it will be. And did you want to share the URL on that?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So the URL it's my name, which I'll spell after I say it. So it's nataliechapron.com /first date. And it's spelled NATHLIECHAPRON.com/first date.
Thank you very much. We will, thank you. We will put the URL on the email so that everybody has access to that.
Perfect. And once people, if you're getting that particular training, then there's another bonus training after that. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you'll have to sign up to figure it out. But it's super valuable. You're going to want to get it. So
Great.
Hope this will be fun for you.
Nathalie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and information about giving us a great overview about color palette, A through F. It's been really informative, and I hope our audience has enjoyed it as much as I have.
Oh, I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me, Barbara.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.